If you search for relationship advice on the internet, you're probably going to get some things like communication is key and that compromise is something that's a necessity in every relationship, and that gratitude and appreciation are foundational components of a good relationship. And these are great advice tips if you're in a relationship with somebody who is emotionally healthy. But what if you've tried these things and instead of seeing any kind of improvement, what you're getting is a one-sided relationship where you feel like you're doing all of the work. You're the one who's trying to make things better. And instead of your partner joining you with this, you're getting criticism, you're getting maybe some complaints about everything is your fault. And if you would just change, if you would work on yourself, then I would be fine. And you feel like maybe even you're the crazy one. If that's the case, it's possible that you might be in a relationship with a narcissist. So what is a narcissist? I think before we jump into the definition, it's important to understand where the term narcissist comes from. It actually comes from Greek mythology. There was this guy named Narcissus, and he was in love with himself. He was an extraordinarily handsome guy. Everyone around him constantly praised him about his good looks, and he was pretty arrogant. In fact, he thought that no one deserved to love him because he was so amazing. So one day, Narcissus is in the forest and he's hunting, and there's this woodland nymph, and her name is Echo, and she spots Narcissus and she immediately falls in love. But unfortunately, Echo had been cursed, so she could only repeat back what she had heard someone else say. She could not instigate a conversation, she could not speak first, and she could not express her own thoughts. Despite this curse, Echo tried to get Narcissus to fall in love with her, but unfortunately all she could do was echo back to Narcissus what he would say first. So as long as she was echoing back to Narcissus, he was intrigued. He wanted more of that. But the moment she made herself known to Narcissus, he actually rejected her. And she was so distraught, so crushed, that she went off to live in a cave. And now if you speak into a cave, what you'll hear is echo. From this story, we've developed a personality disorder type called narcissism, or NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. And this is a mental health condition. It's characterized by a sense of inflated self-importance, an intense need for attention and admiration, and they oftentimes have very troubled relationships because they have a lack of empathy for other people, and they see other people only as objects that are there to serve them because they think they're so wonderful. It's also really important to understand that not everybody who has narcissistic tendencies or traits is a narcissist. In fact, we're all narcissistic at some level. We all think we're important. We all want to go first. We have a sense of inflated of importance oftentimes. That doesn't mean we're a narcissist. It just means that we have an ego that wants to be gratified. But people who have full-blown narcissistic personality disorders, the unfortunate thing is that they rarely get better. In fact, traditional therapy doesn't really work. And the reason for this is because their psyche is so fractured from something that probably happened to them early into their childhood that they will likely always be this way. It's sad and it's unfortunate, but the truth is that narcissists will probably always struggle with finding intimacy and depth in a relationship. So if you're in love with a narcissist, it's a lot like having a feral cat as a pet. You can love that pet. You can love that cat. It doesn't matter how much you try to love that cat. It's just never going to love you in return because it's just too damaged. When it comes to traditional communication advice, oftentimes we think of things like communication compromise, empathy, appreciation, those types of things, but they don't work on the narcissist. And I'm going to tell you why. Let's start with communication. Communication is essential in any kind of relationship. But the narcissists see communication as a tool for manipulation and control, for self-promotion, and rather than looking for mutual understanding, what they want to do is they want to be understood so that you will do what they want you to do. So just like Echo, when you start to express your needs and your feelings, the narcissist shuts you down and starts telling you why you're not important. Compromise is another pillar of relationship advice, which means that both parties have to make sacrifice for the better of the relationship, for a harmonious relationship. Unfortunately, narcissists see things in terms of winning and losing. So rather than mutual benefit, they want to win at all cost. If they're not winning, they're losing. And when the narcissist loses, that hits their wound. We call it the narcissistic wound so deeply that they become enraged and they will try to squash and kill the competition. Whenever they feel like they've lost, they see that as a sign of weakness. And so you can't really compromise with a narcissist because they only will do what they have to do in order to win. But if you want to stay on good terms with a narcissist, all you've got to do is echo back to them how wonderful they are. However, this is going to be a one-sided relationship and it's not going to be very fulfilling. Appreciation is another piece of advice that you'll often get in typical relationship advice. And we should appreciate each other. But the narcissist's need for continual validation and admiration often surpasses what would be normal. Their constant need for praise is going to be draining on you as a partner. Their constant need for validation is going to make you feel like you're the only one that can make them happy. And this becomes an emotional drain on you, and you start feeling like your needs aren't going to be met. And that's because the narcissist can't self-validate. They can't see and validate themselves from the inside out. Instead, they expect everybody around them to validate. But this always backfires because when the narcissist won't return the favor, the other person in the relationship starts to feel depleted and discouraged. Now, emotional empathy is also a cornerstone of sort of standard relationship advice. And again, in a healthy relationship, this is great. However, the narcissist often struggles with empathy. They can't see how their actions are affecting someone else. And as a result of that, it's hard for them to validate their partners. It's hard for them to see that anything on their end could be wrong or that they could be doing something that might be harmful to someone else. This lack of empathy can make standard relationship advice difficult. Things like active listening and emotional support are less effective. Again, this is because the narcissist is wounded and can't really see anything outside themselves. Instead, they see others as objects, and once they've used the object, they move on. They're unable to empathize and see how their actions affect others. So what should you do if you find you're in a relationship with a narcissist? The first thing you have to realize and come to a place of acceptance is they will always be this way. And if their behavior is truly intolerable, then you might have to leave. But the reason we oftentimes don't leave when we're in a relationship with a narcissist is because we have chosen to love someone who's incapable of loving. And this oftentimes happens as a result of our own childhood wounds and our own childhood experience, where we were constantly trying to get our parents' love and attention. And if we weren't getting that in a healthy way in our childhood, we will seek that out because it's familiar in other relationships. The second thing you have to understand is that narcissists are often fun and engaging and very intelligent, and we fall in love with them because they seem to have this self-confidence about them. But as we're in the relationship, we start to see that their self-confidence is a false sense of self-confidence, that really underneath there is this very wounded. This is why people who fall in love with narcissists oftentimes have very low sense of self-esteem. This is why it's really important that you look for professional help. So if you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, one thing that I would encourage you to do is get some professional help. There's a good chance that you probably had a parent who was a narcissist. See, we're attracted to what's familiar. We also have an unconscious need to rescue our parents. So if we couldn't save our parents when we were young, unconsciously we pick partners who we try to rescue. Another thing you have to really come to a place of acceptance is that narcissists cannot become self-aware. No matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, you're going to continuously find yourself being in love with their potential as opposed to being in love with who they really are. You've seen them act wonderfully. You've seen them be gregarious and charming and even romantic at times. But what you didn't see was all of that was just a scheme to get you to love them and validate them. So the best thing you can do if you're in a relationship with a narcissist is another thing you have to come to a place of acceptance of is that narcissists can't do this one thing, and that's become self-aware. Now, the only way to free yourself from the trap of being in a relationship with a narcissist is to learn to set boundaries and to separate yourself from them. Again, standard relationship advice is based on mutual respect, understanding, and empathy. And these are the very attributes that the narcissist struggles with. Therefore, while this advice might be effective in a relationship that's healthy, it's not going to work if you're in a relationship with a narcissist. Now, remember, every individual relationship is unique. It's different. And Remember, every relationship is unique, and what might work for one relationship isn't necessarily going to work for another. But if you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, consider seeking professional help to help you navigate through the dynamics of being in this relationship. If you found this video useful, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.